Hello everyone, now that Nighthold has been out for a couple weeks, we all have that certain boss that hits us really hard, that certain boss that's a little bit harder to progress through. We've all had enough time to develop a grudge against the boss. So today, what I want to do is break down every single boss fight by the types of damage that they're going to deal to the tank. So if you're a tank, this video's for you. What we're going to cover is who does physical, who does magic damage, what it is, and how much of it there is, so that in case you have a separate set of gear for magic damage, you can go ahead and do that. Or at least something like what I do, I throw on different trinkets depending on if it's a physical or a magic heavy fight, and this will also help you in determining your rotation and priorities during the fight. So if you're stuck progressing through any fight from LFR to heroic, then this guide is for you. We do not cover mythic mechanics in this video, but that will be in an upcoming video. So the first thing I want to say is a huge shout out to Ultramad8950 from Discord. He went ahead and posted this in the tanking Discord, and I went ahead and reviewed logs to compare his data to what I would see in Warcraft log data, and his stuff is very accurate. So if you want to see the full write-up, you can go ahead and click in the description. The write-up is going to be linked down there, but if not, let's just get right to it. Now up first, we have Scorpiron, and the very easy breakdown of this is the tank that's going to be tanking the boss is going to be taking primarily magic damage. The boss that's tanking the ads is primarily going to be taking physical damage. Now the boss tank is going to be taking magic damage from Arcano Slash, and the ad tank is going to be taking physical damage from the ads and the self buffs that they give themselves. Now boss number 2, Chronomatic Anomaly. The biggest thing that you're going to be taking during this fight is magic damage, and this magic damage comes in the form of the stacking debuff that you're going to have and the environment. Now while you should be avoiding the large majority of the environment magic damage, the stacking debuff is something that you definitely cannot avoid, and that's guaranteed magic damage is going to happen every encounter. The third boss we have is Trilliax, and this boss is going to be about 50-50. Honestly, there's going to be a nice even split between magic and physical damage. So first we have Arcane Slash, which is primarily magic. The bonds are also going to be magic, but the rest of the time, if you're actively tanking the boss, then you're going to be taking physical damage just from auto attacks. So what ends up happening is the damage you end up taking from the slashes and bonds is about 50-50 with the physical damage. Now the fourth boss in this is Spellblade Oriole, and she's going to be primarily doing physical damage. Now this is going to come in the form of Annihilate. All of the rest of the damage that comes from the ads is not as massive as these Annihilate hits, so you should primarily focus your survivability on Annihilate. One other thing to note about Annihilate is that the Annihilate damage is blockable. That goes for everybody out there that can block, does have a shield. Now at this point, Nighthold splits off into completely different sections, but I'm going to go ahead and break down the list according to how the document does it, just so we can all follow along. The next fight here is Star Augur, and basically Star Augur is going to be 95% magic damage. The only non-magic damage you're going to be taking is in the third phase. If you're tanking any of the ads, they have auto attacks. However, even they stack a magic debuff on you that actually ticks for magic damage. So again, the large majority of this fight is magic. Now the next boss is one that I wasn't expecting until I started reviewing my own logs, is Croesus is primarily magic damage. Now the way you're primarily going to be taking magic damage in the Croesus fight is the stacking debuff that you get. So for tanks, the magic damage that is really applied during this fight is the stacking debuff that you're getting at all times, the bomb where someone has to run away and you actually take some magic damage from that, and the pitch that telegraphs to the floor and you have to stand in. The only other big significant thing that happens during this fight is slam, and that is physical damage. But besides that, the boss does have auto attacks, and those are also physical and blockable, but the large majority of this fight is going to be magic damage. Up next, we have Botanist. Now Botanist is mostly melee damage, and that comes in the form of that debuff that you get or actively tanking the boss. Now if the active tank is taking less damage, then the off tank that has the stacking debuff is also going to be taking less damage, so that's something to keep in mind. And during this fight, the reason why it's so physical heavy, even though there's a lot of magic things going on, is because most of the magic damage is avoidable. The only magic damage that is not avoidable is the flares when Botanist splits up into solar, and the spheres that when they collapse do a debuff on everyone. But again, Botanist, mostly physical. Up next, we have Tichondrius. Now this fight is very heavily skewed to physical. What we have during this fight that's unavoidable for tanks is the boss itself, the blood ads, and the Spellblade ads. Now the large majority of this damage is going to be physical. Now the rest of this damage is avoidable by the tanks. They should not be getting plagued, and they should not be getting hit by echoes. So again, the large majority of the damage here is going to be physical in the form of either tanking the boss or tanking the ads. The next boss, we have Grand Magistrate Berserk's Elesande. Now she's going to be also 50-50 depending on who's doing what duty. If you're actively tanking Elesande, you're going to be taking more magic damage, and if you're actively tanking the pink ad, then you're going to be taking more physical damage. So it depends on what your duty is, what kind of damage you're going to be taking. Now the very last boss in this encounter is Gul'dan, and he's primarily also going to be physical damage. So let's go ahead and just break it down by phase. Phase 1 is ad phase. You can easily avoid any of the magic damage that's dished out during this phase and just tank the ads, which are primarily going to be doing auto attacks. Now in phase 2 we have 3 sources of damage for tanks: bonds, popping fell scythe, and the melee from Gul'dan. Now the bonds are split up between all the other people. The scythe should never be too high, and actually the melee is going to be hitting you a lot harder than any of these other active abilities, unless you try to pop bonds by yourself. In phase 3 we have even less sources of damage by having only scythe and melee as the only unavoidable sources of damage during this phase. And again, during this phase the melee is going to be hurting you a lot more, unless you don't soak up souls in the well, which will actually kill everybody and not just only the tanks. The only thing to note about this fight to keep that magic damage as low as possible is to pop your fell scythe as soon as you can and to split your bonds. But that's all the bosses in Nighthold. I hope this helps. I know this really helped me. Now I know exactly what bosses and when to pop spell reflection for that extra magic mitigation. So now you know when to use more magic mitigation and when to use more physical mitigation during these fights to become a more efficient tank and to be able to progress even further. In case you and your guild were struggling with any bosses on normal or heroic, now you have a better understanding of what kind of damage is being dealt to you and you can react accordingly. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, good luck tanking out there.